Good morning, all, depending when you're watching this. Good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I am delighted to tell you that there is a new Bewear card to talk about. My boy, my editing buddy himself, is coming back. Now, you might be thinking, hang on a second, Ross, didn't we get a Bewear in the first Sun and Moon set? Well, yes, we did. And didn't we get a Bewear in the second Sun and Moon set, Guardians Rising? Well, yes, we did. Plus, we're getting the promo Bewear GX coming out soon. And in Japan, they had this Bewear printed in the Ash vs. Team Rocket deck. Well, in Sun and Moon 3, otherwise known as Burning Shadows, we are getting this Bewear. And just to be absolutely clear, no, I don't think that's too many Bewears. And yes, I am absolutely delighted. Now, his 120 HP is pretty good for a Stage 1, to be perfectly honest. It's only a little bit less than Stage 2's, like Greninja, for instance. His colourless typing means he's not hitting anything for weakness, but a couple of years ago, Garchomp would have been running scared. But now we have the Dragon type and nothing's weak to colourless. Bewear's weakness to fighting could be a pain with all the Lichen Rocks running around. Now, the first attack here is actually really quite funky. What happens is you flip a coin, and if you flip a heads, you get to discard the top 3 cards from your opponent's deck. That's 5% of their deck, 1 in 20 cards, right off the bat. That's quite a lot of disruption, ladies and gentlemen. Now, of course, that only gives you a 50% chance of hitting a heads and doing that, so we want to try and put the odds more in our favour so we can use Victini here. Victini from Guardians Rising's got the ability that allows you to reflip a coin, so that actually gives you a 75% chance of discarding 3 cards. If you're playing in the expanded format, you could play Trick Coin as well. It has rotated out of standard, but remember the ruling on Trick Coin. You can only use Trick Coin or Victini. You're not allowed to use them both. Now, the other downside of this attack is that you need to use double colourless energy here. I know you can use 2 basic energy, but you really want to be using double colourless. So maybe this is one of the first chances to really take advantage of Energy Lotto here, because this is one of the best ways to search out that special energy from your deck. And you could even combine this with the supporter card Wally. Now, we are getting close to the rotation here. So I should pause at this moment to say that from now on I'm going to try and make a point of suggesting whether I think cards will or will not be rotated, because of course in Burning Shadows we're only got this for Worlds, and after the World Championships we should have a rotation. It's not been announced, so I can only give you my best estimate, but Wally was reprinted in Generations. It's going to be staying around. So here, if you go second, you Wally your Stuffle into a Bewear, attach a double colourless energy, and then you can straight away on your very first turn of the game, assuming you hit a heads, discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. And the plan here really has to be trying to make sure that you can disrupt your opponent. Try and mill them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be milling for the win. Remember, one of the win conditions in the Pokémon trading card game is that you win if your opponent is unable to draw a card at the beginning of their turn. But it could just be milling until your opponent doesn't have enough cards to do anything with, getting rid of all of their good cards, and then sitting there and just attacking until you take the rest of your prizes. And we've got some options here to support this. One of the most obvious ones to begin with is Team Rocket's handiwork. And of course, Bewear and Team Rocket do have a relationship in the anime, so it does kind of make sense. It gives a nice symmetry to your deck here. Team Rocket's handiwork allows you to flip 2 coins, and for every heads that you hit, you get to discard 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. And don't forget, of course, that this can be reused using Versus Seeker, although we do expect Versus Seeker to rotate out at when the rotation happens after Worlds, so you could still play 4 of these, to be honest with you, which could be kind of fun. And in expanded only, we've still got Trick Shovel to discard the top of your opponent's deck. And then, of course, outside of just discarding cards from their deck, you can slow them down. Play cards like Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer to get rid of their energy and stop them attacking. Play Red Card to put them down to a hand of 4 cards, so hopefully they don't draw into anything. Because the theory here is very simple. For every turn that your opponent doesn't attack, or doesn't do much, or doesn't KO Bewear, you get to discard, hopefully, 3 more cards from the top of their deck. And this is where we're loving it. This is really the theory of this deck. Lysander could be really fun here, pulling a Pokemon that can't retreat into the active, giving you a couple turns of free discarding. And of course, now that Field Blower's out, your opponent can't even use something like Floatstone to guarantee free retreat. They'd have to have the Floatstone in hand to retreat that turn. They can't leave it on there like they could in the past. So, I did a little bit of maths, and this is very much kind of back of a napkin maths, but here's the deal. Let's say you've got 6 Bewear, each giving up 1 prize, and let's say that you get to attack twice with each Bewear and you never hit a double tails. Now I know there's a whole bunch of assumptions. Some of your Bewears will be 1-hit KO'd, your opponent may KO something like a Shaman or a Tapu Lele on the bench, you might hit a double tails, etc. But that would be 36 cards. Add in a couple of Team Rocket's handiwork, let's say you play 4, and on average you hit 1 heads from each of them, then you're discarding another 8 cards, which brings you up to 44 cards, ladies and gentlemen. That's ridiculous. That's 3/4 of their deck right there. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that's extreme luck, I know it won't always happen, but it's a nice example of what could happen if you flip an awful lot of heads. Now, you will need, if you really want to go down this route, 6 Bewear, which means you need to recover the Bewear, but we've got Rescue Stretcher now, which is really good for that, and you'll need to recover the double colourless energy, but we've got Special Charge, so we are all good, ladies and gentlemen. The second attack on Bewear for 3 colourless energy does 120 damage, and this is not a bad attack at all, because if you add a Choice Band on here, you're doing 150 to EXs and GXs, and then if you play a Professor Kukui, you can hit 170, that's enough to get a 1-hit KO on something like an Eeveelutions. That's a lot to love about this. Now, one thing I don't love about this is that you instantly confuse yourself. And what I also don't love about this is we have a way around this. We've got the tool card Heavy Boots. You attach it, your Pokemon cannot be confused. Well, unfortunately, that only works for Pokemon that have a retreat cost of 3 or more. And although the Sun and Moon Bewear does, and although Bewear GX does, both the Guardians Rising and this Bewear have a retreat cost of 2, so Heavy Boots is off the table. Though you can still use Chaos Tower, which will also stop you being poisoned as well. And there isn't a particular stadium you have to use for Bewear, so it's not the end of the world here. It's just a little bit annoying. Hey ho. The free energy is a little bit of a pain here. It's a little bit overpriced. But you're not going to be using this every turn. Mill, get rid of cards, get rid of cards, get rid of cards. Oh, now I can add a third energy and start attacking. There should be a couple of Bewears that are just sitting there milling cards while you wait for the third one to attach and do the 120 damage. Really does sound like a lot of fun to me. Now, potentially here, being a stage 1, we can use the Eevees from Ancient Origins. Do bear in mind, though, that the rotation we're expecting, not guaranteed, but the rotation we're expecting will get rid of these from the standard format, but these can change Bewear into a different type. Your Flareon would then make Bewear able to hit for weakness against Decidueye and Lurantis. Vaporeon would allow you to hit for weakness against Turtonator and Volcanion. And Jolteon would allow hitting for weakness against Mega Rayquaza and Eeveelutions. Because, of course, you're 2-hit KOing pretty much anything for 120. This will allow you to 1-hit KO. And outside of the odd turn where you need to really do 170, most of the time doing 120 with Bewear will be okay. You don't always need to be hitting with Choice Band, so you can afford to use Heavy Boots here. And of course, Heavy Boots does up your HP as well. One big problem with this is, of course, that you need to be using a whole bunch of item cards, so maybe it's not got a great Garbodor matchup. But the great thing about Mildex is that if you hit enough heads, you will beat anything here. Overall, I just worry it's a bit too inconsistent. If you're against any deck that can just set up and 1-hit KO you, milling will be too slow and not particularly work. I love the first attack, and I love Bewear, and I think this will be a viable deck. But when I say viable deck, I mean It's worth sleeving up, taking to League and having a bit of fun. It's worth taking over to a League challenge. Would I sleeve this up for a regional championships or an intercontinentals? I'm not entirely sure that I would. But I'm still going to give Bewear a nice solid 3 Wassies because it's a Bewear and I refuse to give it less than 3 Wassies. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. Use them both, it will make me happy. Make sure you follow me on Twitter @TheWassie, and the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.